Hello. The crisis we are facing now goes much further than public health. The real global alarm today is the economy, since most measures to deal with the coronavirus outbreak heavily affects also companies' revenues, demanding quick and smart reactions from managers. The GDP of the US is expected to drop 5% in the first semester of 2020, the worst result in 10 years. In other countries, unfortunately, companies from many different sectors are also reporting difficult times. How should managers react to crises such as this? How can we ensure companies are shielded or even ensure growth in turbulent times? That's the subject of our today's chat. I will make a 10-minute initial presentation and then go for a Q&A session, a questions and answer session. If you want to send your questions, please just log on YouTube by clicking on the chat tab, right? So, let's get started. Crises can happen due to many different reasons: loss of business or consumer confidence, corporate or government mistakes, wars, terrorist attacks, and also disease like the one we are facing now. Let me tell you a very important thing. Fear is not a good advisor. Those who, in periods of crisis, are driven by fear will only make the situation of the company they work for even worse. On the contrary, we need to pool our strengths and fight. We need to seek new ideas, reach new ways, just as you are doing right now. It's important to bear in mind that a lot of companies have proven it's possible to grow and to prosper during a crisis. A lot of professionals have stood up for new ideas, for launching new actions, and today their careers are prospering. What I want is to help you to be one of these professionals. Now, take a look at the information popping up on your screen. These are the most recent forecasts from JP Morgan about the effects the coronavirus outbreak has had on economic growth. The US economy could shrink 2% in the first quarter and 3% in the second quarter, while the Eurozone economy could contract by 1.8 and 3.3% in the same periods. According to the OECD, this year will probably have the slowest economic growth rate since 2009. My suggestion to every manager is to work hard, dry the tears, and head back to work. Now I will start talking about strategic actions that companies can follow to overcome crisis. Here, I'm summarizing the content presented a free ebook offered by IBS Americas, which you can download by clicking the link available in the comments area of this transmission or in the link of my invite for this lecture. My first suggestion, and beware it's a painful suggestion, is downsizing your company. Downsizing means reducing the company's operations in general. It helps maintain the main activities of the organization with widespread cost cuts, reducing the company's size. Norwegian Air announced they will lay off up to 50% of its employees across all departments because of a decline in flights. A couple days ago, another company, Tech and Culture Festival South by Southwest, laid off 1/3 of its full-time workforce. An alternative to downsizing, with similar effects on cost cuts, but with other results under the managerial point of view, is downscoping. Downscoping means making specific spending cuts in the, let's say, unattractive business units, which are not central to the company's business scope. Bayer sold last year the animal health unit to focus its attention on life sciences. As you can see, both downsizing and downscoping promote cuts in the company's expense, but they strongly affect revenue and lead to the difficult reality of cutting jobs. When the economy is in bad shape, this is one of the worst decisions a manager must take in his or her life. Some options that you should consider before taking drastic measures are the strategic alliances. These alliances reduce costs and promote cost sharing between competing companies. Let's see the types of alliances and see also some examples for you to better understand them. There are three main types of strategic alliance. The first type is called synergistic. We call it synergistic because it aims to explore synergies between competitors, seeking scope economies, an option to the loss of scale economies provoked by the crisis. A good example of this strategy was a joint venture between Ambev and Whirlpool. Ambev, you know, is a global company with headquarters in Europe, while Whirlpool is an American company. Together, they decided to go out on a limb and started a company called B-Blend, developing the homemade drink market in Latin America. Alone, neither company could have thrived in this new market. Together, however, they increased their chance of success. Another strategic alliance option that we can discuss here goes by the popular name of franchising. This is a spectacular way to attract partners and investors that today dominates retail worldwide. You can launch franchise and expand your network with capital that would have been used to boost your competitors. Okay? The last type of alliance is called complementary alliance. It looks very much like the synergistic alliance that I explained just seconds ago. But in the case of the complementary alliance, two or more firms exchange part of their operations. Again, I'll give you an example. The beer foods from Brazil and the Singapore food industries from Singapore, of course, struggled for the food markets in Asia. Both did the whole process, from production to distribution to logistics. It turns out that beer foods is much stronger in production, while the Singapore foods industries is stronger in logistics in Asia. With the alliance between them, beer foods can devote to production, while it will leave logistics to Singapore foods. All right, got it? Just remember that at the end, we'll have time for questions, discussions, and I'd love to hear your opinion. Well, now I'd like to go to give some examples and suggestions of strategies to face a crisis, strategies for companies operating on a focus on differentiation now, all right? Differentiation strategies practiced by companies that offer greater quality of products and services. Now imagine a crisis knocks on the front door and your sales are weak. What must the manager who is looking for to offer more sophisticated products do? My first suggestion is to perfect even more the quality of your products. The increased quality strategy means the whole organization finds new methods, new ways to better understand what customers expect and how to enhance their products. The result can be the retention of customers who would migrate to less expensive options. And in some cases, the increase in price helps recover the lost margins resulted from lower sales volume. Another way to deal with the effects of the crisis is to invest in innovation. The innovation strategy aims to develop a product able to contain the stampede of customers, seeking out lower-cost competitors. For example, now in China, robot manufacturers turn out to be facing high demand. You can guess why, right? Rocco's global robotics firm managed to quickly adapt to the changing conditions in China and created new robots that could perform cleaning and food preparation tasks, which are considered now dangerous for humans to perform due to possible infection spread. A specific form of innovation can happen through the provision of services. Unlike the above, innovating through services has an advantage. the cost and time needed to implement these innovations are much smaller, and you can still save some jobs within your company. Moving forward here, the next strategy that can be used to face bad times in the economy is the improvement in the communication of value. Let me explain. Many customers stop buying the products of your company because they cannot see the inherent benefits of the product. And in times of crisis, this factor tends to magnify. And finally, the last strategy I'd like to address is the subsegmentation strategy, also known as niche strategy. I have an interesting case here to share with you. Have you ever heard about the term homebody economy? Well, this term popularized in 2018 to describe a phenomenon of people who like to stay home, either doing home office or are not working at all at this moment. While the broader market may tumble in unfavorable economic conditions like we are facing now, stocks of the homebody economy are rising. Some examples are the video conferencing service called Zoom, the fitness equipment called Peloton, and technology companies like Netflix, right? Given that, we reach the end of this presentation. I want to thank you again for being here with us. I know that we are in a difficult moment, but hopefully these concepts and these examples I have shared with you will help you to develop new market strategies. Now, I'd like to talk to you, hear your opinions, your questions. Log in on the comment section, and in 1 minute, I will be back. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back here for a Q&A session, a question and answer session. We've got several questions here. I will try to summarize all of them in a couple answers, all right? And I'd like also to congratulate some people that have shared not only their questions, but also some opinions, some suggestions. I have here Mr. Simon Tao. Congrats, Mr. Simon. In others like you that have give some thought on these subjects and trying to develop a set of a lot of ideas about how to manage companies in times of crisis. This is an urgent matter, of course, but believe me, you are young, you will face several crises in your life in the future. Crises always are taking place, always happening due to economic issues, political issues, wars, pandemics, whatever. So managing companies in times of crisis is an important skill for your career, all right? So let's go ahead. Mr. Naze sent a question: how to achieve sales in coronavirus time? What are the skills should be used? Well, your preparation starts here, discussing how the main business management authors have discussed this in the past, and also adapting this literature that I try to summarize in our ebook, in our lecture here, to transform, to adapt it to your specific context, Mr. Nazet. Thank you very much for being with us. Mr. Anthony asks, How do you create a scenario in significant drop in demand for a product or service? As a matter of fact, Mr. Anthony, scenario, we try always to use this expression in the plural, scenarios, which means that we try to think of the future and think of it could be this way, that way, or the other way, and try to prepare our company for all scenarios at the same time, developing what we call a robust strategy. Robust strategy is a strategy that's robust enough to face different scenarios. Why we try scenarios and be prepared for them instead of preparing just one in the singular scenario? Because nobody can tell what the future will look like. The crystal balls are not on sale anymore. We cannot forecast the future. If someone say for you, well, the future will be this or the future will be that, it's a lie, it's a guess, it's a guesstimation. In business management, we create scenarios. In the worst case scenario, the best case scenario, the more likely scenario, and create a strategy that's able to help your company to succeed in all of them. All right? Thank you very much. Mr. Said Cesari, how prepared are we when if there is another pandemic that may destroy or affect our organizations? Well, my friends, be ready for that. If you are young, believe me, it's not the last crisis that you face in your life. Crises are part of the reality of our history. You cannot expect, well, from now on, the world will be growing smoothly, steadily, and no surprise in the future. Life is not like that. Life is much more complicated. How can we be prepared? Well, by learning. You are learning now. You are facing a crisis, discussing in this seminar what is the contribution the business literature can offer you, so you are developing the necessary skills to be more prepared in the future. Okay, Mr. Sal, thank you very much. Ms. Surya asks, how the company can sustain itself in such a period of crisis where no any financial support from government will be received? Surya, this is the reality around the world. Governments are taking longer than they should to react to this crisis. Credit lines are scarce at this moment. And even if you get a credit line, think of it. If you are losing money now, you get some credit. How can you pay that in the future? It's not that simple. So, in my opinion, you should stick to the suggestions I made in my presentation, which is not my suggestions, by the way. It's a collection of suggestions from several different authors, reputable authors that have suggested actions to face the crisis, to survive the crisis, to help your company to grow in times of crisis. That's the way I believe you should follow at this point. Okay, Surya, thank you very much. I'm answering here the questions that you have sent in anticipation, but we will still have some time to answer the questions that you are sending now in our chat, okay? I have here a question from Ms. Veronica. She asks, are there any anti-cyclical companies now during COVID-19? Well, let me just explain the concept of anti-cyclical companies. There are some companies known by the fact that when the economy goes down, these companies goes up. And in some cases, even the opposite. Companies that no matter the economy is good or bad, they are more resilient to the economic cycles. How can this be? Well, you just for you to understand that, you just need to think of what is the consumer typical reaction in times of crisis or not times of crisis. If you at least, example, if you take a medicine, for example, and you need one pill per day, if you double your salary, will you take 2 pills a day? No, you will only take the pill you need to take. If you are losing money, you will struggle to keep taking one pill a day. So there are some categories of products that are not necessarily uh, immune to crisis, but they are much more resilient to crisis. Think of this crisis right now. If you produce alcohol rubs, for instance, you are selling more now than ever in your life. If you produce surgical masks at this moment, you will sell more than in the rest of your life. So there are some products that, given the specificities of a crisis, they can enjoy the crisis to sell more and more. But these are specific cases. What we are trying to do in this lecture, in our ebook, is to give suggestions, specific examples, strategies, um, conceptual models that can help any companies to face difficult times. All right, Veronica, thank you very much. I have here another question from Mr. Sheikh Islam, and his question has something to do with the question sent from Mr. Aboji, so I'm going to answer both at the same time. Sheikh asks, what will be the effects of COVID-19 on agricultural economy? And how to start up and create a protected and strong company in any situation? Well, in a certain sense, Aboji, Sheikh, and Veronica points to the same direction. There are some companies, like agricultural companies, that if you make more money, you not necessarily will eat more. You may eat better, but more foods not necessarily is good for you. So agricultural business is a kind of business much more resilient to economic cycles than other categories of products. If you are selling luxury goods, for instance, people can easily postpone the purchase of one of our items. But in terms of agricultural business, the demand is more stable. And how to start up and create a protected and strong company in any situation may have something to do with the type of market you are entering in, or it may have a strong connection with the suggestions we are making here. It's important for you to understand that regardless the market you are in, the sector you work in, you can develop business strategies that makes your company more robust in order to face crises like this. How you do that? The presentation I did, I gave you, the ebook that we have shared with you, summarize most of these ideas, creating a company that is at the same time is strong in their understanding of market necessities and have a cost structure very lean in a way that they can survive crisis because they are faster, they are stronger, they are more accurate in their market position than the average. The government tries to increase the average of the economy. Your managerial efforts should be concerned on putting your company above the line of the economic development. This is the basic idea, all right? So these are some of the questions that we received in anticipation. I'd like now to start answering the questions you are sending now. Please, Julia, can you read the name of the people and also their questions for us to answer?
Yes, of course, Professor. We have actually a very interesting question from Nidal Lasri. And she says, now bear with me because this question has 3 parts. How can we guarantee the good and usual employees' performance? I mean, how can managers deal and act with employees who work from home, for example? And what are the strategies they can adopt?
Can I answer this one first?
Of course.
All right. Well, Nidal, I believe home office and other initiatives of distance work have been employed for several companies in the recent years, and they will certainly take advantage of this crisis to increase the usage of this kind of technique. Because one, lots of people prefer to stay home. Second, when they stay home, you save money from your company because there are several costs involved in the transportation of the employee to your company, the commuting every day, and also food, everything. And third, basic, based upon some tools, some techniques of managing distance working, you can improve your control over people's productivity. So it can be a very positive output of this crisis, all right? But you cannot just rely on, well, go home and I'm trusting you do your job. This is not how you manage a team. You need to offer them resource, specific hardware and software to control, to monitor, to make the people keep cooperating. If you are thinking of a job that the person do by him or herself is one story, but many teams need to cooperate, and cooperate in one room is one story. Cooperating with people in different places is another task that you should face at this point. All right, Nidal, thank you very much for sending your question. Are there more questions from the same person?
Actually, I'm going to use Nidal's question as a hook to talk about products that are in trend with crisis such as this one. So, for example, we have BNHJ's question, how can we benefit from a crisis like this? Are there any areas in which we can invest in order to benefit from its growth once the market recovers?
Well, Nidal, what is the name of the other person?
BNHJ.
BNJ, thank you very much. The idea is that we can, from one perspective, try to learn on how to improve our managerial skills. We are learning on how to do some home offices, how to manage home offices. We are learning how to simplify the logistic process in order to reduce the necessity of contact between the clients and the company. It's gonna be if I can say it like this, it may be a legacy of this crisis. More and more companies are speeding up the process of learning how to deliver their products with a minimum contact between the client and the server. So it's going to last after the crisis because it reduced the cost. It's a managerial change that we are observing in several markets nowadays. On the other hand, we have several opportunities that are specific to this to this crisis. I have mentioned alcohol rubs or chirurgical masks or logistic services that are being increased in their usage, but they may be reduced after the end of the crisis, etc., etc. The first batch of benefits, the learning, the development of skills, the new usage of technologies, etc., they came to last. That's my opinion. All right. Thank you very much for being with us. Please, let's go ahead. We are running out of time here, Julia.
Well, as you can imagine, there are a lot of questions related to employees and employee retainment. So I'm just going to choose Jan Lee's question, which kind of envisions most of the questions. And what about strategic vision regarding the HR perspective processes? How to reduce and minimize the impact and survive without dismissing employees, as they're mostly a big portion of costs?
Several people think that managers have a hobby to dismiss people, to fire people. This is not a hobby. This is not a pleasure. It's a it's a terrible task for any manager to dismiss people, especially in moments of crisis. Managers should do, and they usually do, their best to keep their team up and running during crisis. And there are several reasons for that. There is the social side. we understand that during crisis, if you fire someone, it's going to be hard for them to find a new job. And there is also the managerial perspective. When you hire someone, there is someone in your team, fire him has a cost. Hiring someone else in the near future has another cost. So trying to keep your team with you during periods of time is certainly the first option every manager should consider. How to do that? I have made some suggestions for you. First, innovate, create something different. You may use these people that are not fully employed in your company right now in a new initiative, a new business unit that you are putting in place during times of crisis. You can also increase the provision of services for your current products and services. You offer a product for your clients, offer also a service, an additional service that can be beneficial to your client, can strengthen the ties between you and your client, and also use the service of people that you could be considering to fire them due to the decrease of demand in times of crisis. All right, let's go.
We actually have one question now related to social media by Isabela Ribeiro. And she asks, how can companies use social media considering the necessity of digitalization, especially in times of crisis, to retain customers and demonstrate support?
Well, Isabella, thank you very much for bringing up this question, because in a certain sense, we are doing this now. We are in touch with people from all over the world at this moment using social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, etc. And companies should take advantage of that, considering that most people nowadays, we can say that have two lives, two independent lives. They have their brick and mortar life in their daily activities, but they also have a virtual life in their social media platforms. If the company is able to enter this new life and interact with people, they can render services for people inside their platforms, and also can increase, solidify their market position, their brand positioning inside people's mind, in a way that when people want to buy something in the future, they will have a good position of this company in their minds. All right, Isabella, thank you very much. And now going to the last question of today. We are running out of time. Please, Julia.
Yes, the last question belongs to Amira Lunes, and she asks, what is the strategy to adopt in order to control budgeted expenses of the company and avoid waste associated with it in a context of crisis?
Amit, we are now in a moment that you should open all your spreadsheets and revise every register you have there. You cannot burn anything now from your resource. You should check every contract you have, every penny you spend, every time spent in any activities should be revised. How you can save resources at this moment is your number one priority at this point. Because otherwise you can say, well, I have some cash to burn, I'm okay, I can survive, but you don't know next week, you don't know next month. You must be precautious now, save as much money as you can, not firing people, not paying your suppliers, doing it legally, doing it ethically, doing it responsibly, but do it. Reduce your costs, reduce your expense, because crisis means a scarcity of resources available in the market. Reducing demand. Reducing demand is quicker than reducing your expense. So work on the expense to adjust your expense to the current demand is my suggestion for you. I have made some suggestions specifically for this in the first part of the lecture when I talked about alliances, I talked about other initiatives, downsize, downscoping. You could revise them in our ebook and bring up your own ideas about how to apply this in your own context. All right? I mean, thank you very much for all of you that have been with us this afternoon. Thank you very much for sharing your ideas, your perspectives, your opinions. I truly hope that these ideas can help you to succeed in your careers, to succeed in your companies. The world is now needing desperately good ideas like yours to make your companies prosper, helping the social and economic development of your region, of your community, of your country, and the whole world. Thank you again, and see you soon, guys. Bye bye.